Welcome to this episode of Erasing Shame podcast. My name is DJ Chuang. I'm joined with Phyllis Myung, who is a pastor at Great Roads Church in Acton, Massachusetts, and also director of community at Asian American Christian Collaborative. So good to see you again.
Good to see you again too, DJ. Always a
And on this
pleasure.
episode, yes, my pleasure as well. I'm going to get to see you 2 weeks in a row in person, so I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, it's going to be busy. A lot of traveling for me, but it's totally going to be worth it. So,
Yes. And so we're going to primarily talk about the uh, Mental and Emotional Health Symposium coming up in New York City, March 18th, which is a
mhm.
Saturday in
Yep.
downtown Manhattan.
Yep.
But before we get to March 18th, is March 11th, which we'll also mention. It's a parenting conference series here in Southern California, to be specific, in Mission Viejo. So both Phyllis and myself will be at both of those events, and we'll add a link in the show notes so you can get more information about the parenting conference. The first one in March is on parenting in the digital age. And then in April, one on mental health. And in May, one on gun violence. So in
Mhm.
this episode, we're going to talk about the March 18th event, which Phyllis has been at the center of organizing it. So thank you so much for pulling together this very, very important topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just been a joy and kind of a um, dream come true in some ways to be able to kind of do this convening to talk about such an important topic and talk about something that I think as Asian American Christians, we don't talk too much about. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
really excited for it.
Well, as we started this new season of Erasing Shame, we really focused on encouraging Christian and Asian mental health. So this fits
Hmm.
very much. And we love having the online conversations and then to have opportunities for in-person conversations. So thank you for convening this symposium. Now, I've been going to lots of church conferences in my adult life for the past 20 plus years, and I don't come across many symposiums. So what's the difference between a symposium and a conference? And then we'll get into the topic.
Yeah, so I think they're actually similar. I think they're just synonyms of what it is, but a symposium to me is more one where it's a little bit condensed and shorter. Usually conferences might be more than just a day, but this is just going to be one day from morning until kind of the early afternoon. And it's a time to learn. And I feel like when I call it a symposium, it's a little less formal than a conference. And so it's just going to be a little bit more on the informal side where we're going to have some conversation and some direct interaction with speakers. There isn't going to be this big stage. The event is being held at the Hub in New York City. Um, and it's a little bit of a more intimate and smaller space. And so I think it'll be really conducive to some important conversations, but in a not so in a really like safe and inviting way. Um, and where people will really get to have some good interaction with our featured speakers and to be able to talk with each other and kind of walk away from this with some real practical takeaways and some practices that they could start to use and things that maybe they can bring back even to their own churches, or if they're a church leader who's coming to present, to their congregation.
Fantastic. And so let's talk about the theme, and then we'll talk about the speakers. So the team has described it as "Have you eaten?" What does that have to do
Yes.
with mental and emotional health?
Well, the reason why we came up with that is we wanted to reflect the notion of care. And so I know this is true in many um, Asian American cultures or Asian cultures in general, but
Mhm.
definitely for me as a Korean American, I remember my dad saying to me that when he was growing up, people wouldn't ask the question, how are you doing? But they would ask, have you eaten? And
Mm,
it was a way to kind of check in to see how things were going.
mm.
And I think that has always stuck with me. And so I just thought, oh, that might be a very appropriate title as we care for ourselves and we care for our community. Um, the question that I want to ask is, have you eaten? Not just physical food, but have you eaten to take care of yourself, to nourish yourself spiritually, emotionally, mentally? And so that's why our theme is, have you eaten?
That's a really good cultural metaphor. So good job
Yeah.
on that. And there will be
Thanks.
eating that happens at the
There
event,
will
right?
be eating. Yes, yes. We are right in the heart of like 31st and kind of like the east side. And so there's a lot of good places to eat. So we'll have some suggestions for some places to go out and grab some lunch. And, I live up in Boston, which it's not the greatest food. I think New York has better food. So I'm excited to go and eat at some of the new and exciting places that are kind of popping up around Manhattan. So,
Mhm.
yes, there will definitely be eating involved.
Yes, there's definitely lots of good eats in Manhattan, and I hope somebody brings
Yeah.
snacks because we Asian
Yeah.
Americans love to eat snacks.
Yes, we love
So,
snacks.
and then tell us about the speakers and what will they be addressing?
Yeah. So I'm so excited. We have three featured speakers for the symposium. And the first person is Sharon Swift. And I have to say, I know Sharon as a friend. And she and I work in the same denomination, or we're part of churches, or we're pastors in the same denomination.
Hmm.
And she works over at New Life Church, which is out in Queens.
Hmm.
And so they do a lot of work around emotionally healthy spirituality.
Oh yeah, is that
And
Pete Scazzero's book?
I used to, yeah,
Okay.
that was his book, and that's the church that he had started.
Mm.
And so I'm really excited to have Sharon because Sharon really has a unique perspective. I think she's an abuse survivor, but she also
Mm.
had a traumatic brain injury. And um, she just, the way that she kind of looks at it, and she's a South Asian woman, the ways that she looks at kind of trauma and spirituality and healing, it's so unique and so incredible. And so I'm really excited. She's really good at sharing spiritual practices that are really helpful um, in terms of kind of checking in with your emotional and mental health and to kind of help facilitate in our healing processes. And so she's
Mm.
going to talk a little bit about that as well as introduce some spiritual practices and go through them with us while we're at the symposium. So I'm really excited for Sharon. She's awesome. I've heard her speak numerous times, and every single time she is pretty amazing. And then the other person we have is Daniel Yang, and he is a chaplain
Mm.
as well as an ordained minister. So I think he has a really unique lens. He currently works at a teaching hospital in New York.
Mhm.
And, so he gets kind of this other look that's outside of churches, but this other look of people who are kind of coming into the hospitals and ways that people need mental health support. So he's going to talk a little bit about what mental health support even looks like. And
Mhm.
sometimes we don't know what that is. And so he's going to touch upon that. And then he's going to share a little bit of his own personal experiences and also why he thinks that Asian Americans in particular don't really get the resources that they need, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to mental health and how that kind of fits along as a justice issue. So
Mhm.
I think he's going to be really fantastic. I'm really excited for him. He's done a lot of work in social justice and activism in New York for the
Mhm.
past decade or so it's going to be great. And then we're going to have Laura. And
Mhm.
Laura, I get to work with at AACC. She's so cool. But she is also the executive director of Renew Project, which is a nonprofit that helps refugee women who are in the Chicagoland area. And they have this beautiful business where they have these handcrafted items. And so I'm excited to have her because she has a background in pastoral care and counseling. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences,
Oh,
and also walk us through a practice, I think having to do with food, like food memories, and
mm,
how that can facilitate us in some healing. So I'm just really excited. I think you're going to get three really unique and different perspectives that are going to touch upon different topics that intersect with mental health and emotional health, and especially targeting Asian American Christians. So I I mean, we'll have notepads, we'll have pens so that you
mhm,
could take all the notes. We'll have snacks,
mhm,
we'll have food to eat. So I think it's going to be really good. And I think it's going to be a great way to kind of kick off our conversations in
mhm.
person about mental and emotional health.
Well, that's fantastic. And since the event runs almost all day, how many hours? And you've got three kind of like interactive sessions that are kind of like workshops. We also have time that are open
Yeah.
space for people to connect with each other. Have you worked that into the schedule?
Yeah, so we'll have some question and answer time,
Mm,
but we'll also have a little bit of time towards the end to have a symposium wide discussion about some
mm,
practical takeaways and
mhm,
just kind of check in to see where people are at and how they've been processing some of the practices that they've been doing, as well as some of the information that they've been hearing and interacting with. So, yeah, we'll definitely have some time to be able to do that, and I'm just excited because I think it'll be nice to be able to do that all together, to
mhm.
get that wide variety of perspectives and experiences.
Yeah, and as we talked about this previously, space is limited. So you really
Space
want people
is
to,
limited.
yeah.
Yeah, so register right now because we
And
want to make
registration
sure
is
that
free
registration's totally free. Yes,
because
it's
someone's
totally
generously
free.
provided the funding needed to cover
Yes.
space rental and maybe some of the travel and other incidentals.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm coming in from California, so I imagine there's some people that are coming in from out of town, which is exciting.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And,
Yeah. So, well, yeah.
anything else you'd like to say as we close?
No, just register because space is limited. And I want everyone to be there. And, I see this symposium as kind of the first step into these conversations and the first of many conversations, I hope.
Mhm,
And I know that there's also been a lot of people who've been asking if these sessions are going to be recorded or they're going to be live streamed. And unfortunately, they are not.
mm,
But I have some exciting things lined up for some digital webinars and potentially some other digital events, kind of virtual events coming down in the future to talk more about mental health. So, if there are any particular topics or issues or questions that people were really hoping that we would cover,
mm, mhm,
um, in something like this, in a symposium like this, I would love that feedback because
mm,
then it'll help me to shape kind of our future events, but also to make sure that we're covering the topics that people really want to talk about. I mean, I have a whole bunch in
mm.
my head, but that's only just from my perspective. So I really welcome that, and I can't wait for you to be there, and I can't wait for everyone else to join in to listen to the speakers and to interact with them, and for us to start talking about mental health and emotional health. Such an important topic, and so needed. So um, yeah, I love that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I
Thanks.
know we're on a podcast, so it's not easy to share a QR code. And our URL is really, really long. So the easiest invite I can make is go to erasingshame.com, and you can leave a message there. You can even leave an audio message there, and I'll relay it right away to Phyllis and incorporate it into our symposium or follow-up events, as well as even here on the Erasing Shame podcast, where we have weekly conversations about encouraging Christian Asian mental health. So we would love to hear from you. Sign up for this symposium, March 18th in New York City. The link will be at erasingshame.com. But if you're good at spelling, Asian American Christian Collaborative.com. And then on the front page is a link for the Have You Eaten Mental and Emotional Health Symposium. Look forward to connecting with you there. Look forward to connecting with you online if you're not able to be there in person, but really want to engage the conversation. Thank you for listening to this episode of Erasing Shame. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, DJ.
Thank you for listening to the Erasing Shame podcast. Check out the show notes at erasingshame.com and subscribe to our email for updates. We would love to hear from you, so please add your comments at our website or on social. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app, and you can also subscribe on YouTube or follow on Facebook. Please add a rating and review so we can reach more people with our message of health, hope, and compassion. This podcast is the digital outreach of Christian Asian mental health.